How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 1000, and in this video we're going to focus on Invest 97L and the potential for other tropical disturbances that potentially could develop into Tropical Storm Danielle within the next 5 days or even beyond that point. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at Invest 97L, and as you can see, we don't have a lot of thunderstorm activity, as the thunderstorm activity is primarily scattered, as it's really showing that this tropical wave is struggling at this point to really have enough convection and instability for a well-defined small center of circulation to develop, and it doesn't seem like it's going to have a high chance of receiving any more convection at all within the near future. So it's going to struggle to get close to becoming Tropical Storm Danielle in the future for the most likely. In terms of the moisture, there's a decent amount of moisture, but the upper level winds are only expected to increase as it heads further eastward, and since we haven't seen that blow up of convection yet, it's unlikely that we're going to see that blow up of convection develop fast enough to a point where we could see high possibility of Tropical Storm Danielle within the next 5 days. Now, taking a look at the current chance the National Hurricane Center is giving this, which is certainly good news compared to the past several days. We now have a low chance of tropical cyclone formation, where now the chance has completely diminished to a 10% chance within the next 48 hours and a 10% chance within the next 5 days. So at this point, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see Tropical Storm Danielle within the next 5 days. However, could there still be that possibility that maybe beyond the 5-day mark, maybe as it approaches closer to the United States, could we see a rebirth of this tropical wave? Well, we're going to have to take a look at the GFS model, at the computer models in general, to really determine if it does have that possibility of potentially developing beyond that 5-day mark, where the chance at this point is very unlikely. And if I were to continue to move forward, we do see that while the moisture will still remain as this heads further westward, we still do see that the storm primarily struggles because, like I said, the upper level winds are only going to increase as it heads further northwestward, which will definitely make the area of thunderstorm activity very disorganized for this to have a high chance of developing even as this heads further westward. So at this point, it's very unlikely we're going to see Tropical Storm Danielle, which is certainly good news, and it's going to move just north enough to where it's going to avoid the Caribbean islands. So even if this doesn't develop, the good news is that it's gonna move far north enough to where most of the Caribbean islands should avoid the heavier rounds of rain associated with this tropical wave. So for the most part, it shouldn't be much of a worry for the Caribbean at this point anymore, besides maybe a couple of isolated thunder showers right around the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, and that's definitely great news to see that this has a low chance of developing. Taking a look at the humidity in the mid levels of the atmosphere, we do see that the GFS model still wants to bring a high level of moisture surrounding this low pressure system, but we do see a decent amount of dry air just to the west of it and the east of it. So we aren't expected to see a blow up of convection that would create center circulation that's strong enough for this to have a good possibility of developing into Tropical Storm Danielle. And now taking a look at the upper level winds, we do see that the upper level winds do increase as this heads further westward, while in the main development region it's fairly light. The thing is that since we haven't seen that blow up of convection right now, then it's unlikely that it's going to happen later, because the wind shear will only increase and so will the dry air. So at this point, the chance of Tropical Storm Danielle forming is very low. In terms of any other tropical disturbances we're going to need to watch, so if I were to continue to move forward, we need to potentially pay close attention to the Western Atlantic, because I think there is a possibility we could see a multitude of cold fronts move through and potentially create enough of an unstable environment to maybe where a subtropical cyclone could form, or maybe we'll see an area of vorticity associated with the cold front and become more in the tropically independent for a chance of a tropical storm to form, as that may be a possibility. At this point, the GFS model isn't really saying that will happen necessarily, but we do see a couple of strong low pressure systems develop off the east coast, just off the northeast coast, but I wouldn't consider this really tropical because the sea surface temperatures are of course cooler further northward, closer to New England, where the temperatures are hovering around the mid 70s. I would say actually if you go south of New York City, where the sea surface temperatures are actually hovering around 80 degrees. The Northeast been in a heat wave over the past several weeks, so the sea surface temperatures have been warming up close to 80, which may be a concern for the latter part of the hurricane season if it were to become more active. But still, I do think that that this low pressure system, or any low pressure system that develops this far up north, will struggle a bit when it comes to becoming fully tropical, because the sea surface temperatures still aren't at that level yet, especially closer to New England, where the sea surface temperatures are mainly hovering around the 70s, and it's gonna need quite a bit of baroclinic influences for this low pressure system to become strong enough to where it could maybe have the wind speed of a tropical storm, but not necessarily be categorized as a tropical entity. Now, there is a low pressure system on the backside of this cold front that maybe could develop. So there are a couple of low pressure systems that could develop just off the east coast, which we're gonna have to pay close attention to. I'd say into next week, but as of right now, it does seem like the GFS or the European model is necessarily developing any sort of isn't confidently developing any sort of tropical entity just off the east coast. So that's something to keep in mind. And in terms of anything else, it seems like the main development region will stay primarily dry over the next several weeks or days, I should say, where you see that there aren't really much tropical waves coming off the coast, or very strong tropical waves, to a point where we could see that possibility of tropical storm Danielle beyond Invest 97L. So that's certainly good news, and hopefully it stays that way, as there's a high amount of stability throughout the Atlantic. So that is diminishing the chance of tropical cyclones for the most part for the next week or two, which is certainly good news, and hopefully it stays that way for as long as possible. But I still do think that the hurricane season will ramp up, because we have to keep in mind we don't really see that the hurricane season ramp up until maybe middle to late August, and for some hurricane seasons we even see it even later than that, into September. So just because it's quiet now does not mean it'll stay that way over the entirety of the hurricane season. So that's something to keep in mind. But the good news is that it seems like it's going to stay quiet for the most part throughout the Atlantic. So that's something good news that we're going to need to cherish for the time being. Now, taking a look at the ensemble members, we do see that now the ensemble members of the GFS model are pretty much agreeing that if any that this low will be primarily weak as it heads further northwestward, and it's highly unlikely we're going to see a tropical storm at this point, because like I said, the upper level winds are going to increase, and we aren't seeing enough convection as of right now, and there's a high amount of stability surrounding this storm. So as a result, it seems highly unlikely we're going to see tropical storm Danielle out of this. Now, taking a look at my forecast, so if there in the slight chance that tropical storm Danielle does develop, it'll move sort of in this vicinity, maybe a little bit further northward. But the good news is that the chance is currently low. Still, at least be aware of it, but I'd say for the most part the Caribbean should be good from any sort of tropical cyclone threat in the near future, which is certainly good news. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day.